Israeli armed forces storm a Turkish ship on its way to Gaza. Many of the passengers are killed or injured. There's worldwide condemnation of the Israeli action. What will be the ramifications? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mike Hanna. They'd hoped to deliver aid and draw attention to Israel's 3-year blockade of Gaza, but the attempt ended in tragedy. In the early hours of morning, Israeli armed forces stormed the lead ship in the flotilla that was Gaza-bound. At least 19 people were killed. The vessel was still in international waters, approximately 70 kilometers off the Gaza coast, well away from Israel's zone of maritime control. The Palestinian government called Israel's action an attack against humanity. Saab Erekat, Palestinian chief negotiator, agreed.
We condemn with the strongest possible term the Israeli attack on the flotilla freedom ships that were coming to Gaza in a peaceful manner from Europe, from other countries, Turkey, Arab countries, to deliver some supplies to the besieged people of Gaza.
The military action has left Israel at the forefront of a diplomatic crisis, but the Israeli government remains defiant. Danny Ayalon, the deputy foreign minister, has accused those aboard the ships of provocation and premeditated violence.
I want to report this morning that the armada of hate and violence in support of Hamas terror organization was a premeditated and outrageous provocation. The organizers are well known for their ties to global jihad, Al-Qaeda and Hamas. They have a history of arms smuggling and deadly terror. On board the ship, we found weapons prepared in advance and used against our forces. The organizers' intent was violent, their method was violent, and the results were unfortunately violent. Israel regrets any loss of life and did everything to avoid this outcome. We repeatedly called upon the organizers and all those who were associated with them through diplomatic channels and any other means we could to stop this provocation.
Turkey, which in the past has been a strong ally of Israel, is furious. The chairman of Turkish Foreign Relations Committee, Murat Merkan, has lashed out at Israel's claims.
Mr. Ayalon is telling a lie. He is not telling the truth, because all these ships, before they start their journey, have been investigated by the Turkish authorities. There is no weapon whatsoever. There was no weapon whatsoever on board, and there was not even a single thing that could be used against the authorities.
Joining us now are our guests in Jerusalem, Yaakov Amidror, military analyst and program director of the Institute for Contemporary Affairs. In London, Phil Rees, journalist and author of the book Dining with Terrorists. In Istanbul, Mustafa Aykol, deputy editor, Turkish Daily News. Welcome all. Let's start in Jerusalem, Yaakov Amidror. Is there any sense that Israel has overstepped the mark? How is this tragic event being perceived?
First of all, as it was said, Israel is very regret about the death of these people. But we ask ourselves all the time why it didn't happen in the other 5 ships. That means that all the other 5 ships were taken peacefully, and it's happened only in the 6th one. When you see the pictures that just released by the Israeli authority, you understand that the violation which were used by the people on board against the soldiers didn't leave the soldiers but to open fire. Otherwise, they would risk their lives. So if you look at the all 6 ships, you understand that something very unique happened in the 6th one, in the big one, which put the soldiers' life in a danger, and they didn't have any other solution but to open fire. And remember, we offered these humanitarians, as you call them, to bring all the materials to Gaza through us, and we promised that it will be escorted by their people into Gaza, and everything will go to Gaza, but they prefer to break the siege on Gaza with violation, and we really regret, but this is a tragic result of their violation.
Let's go to Phil Rees in London. Regardless of the actual circumstances of this, the bottom line perhaps is that the attack took place in international waters against a vessel of a sovereign nation. Is this something that focus should be brought to?
Well, you can imagine, Mike, if, for example, the Iranian authorities went to international waters and started killing people aboard a ship. I mean, there would be much more outrage than you've got now. And I think this does pose questions about the future. For example, what if next time Turkey were to send a military escort, which it's fully entitled to, while the convoy sails in international waters? What would happen then? So, I mean, I think that the world should concentrate, well, on that, plus the excessive use of force. But sadly, I don't think it will in the coming days. I think that there'll be a lot of talk, but very little action.
Well, Mustafa Akyol in Istanbul, a Turkish ship involved in this tragedy. Is there a sense, perhaps, that Turkish sovereignty has been abrogated in this attack?
There is a strong condemnation of Israel in Turkey. The society is infuriated, the government is infuriated, and everybody considers this as an unacceptable attack on a civilian ship in international waters. And Israel was already very much criticized for what it has been doing in Gaza. And this effort was a trial to bring some humanitarian aid into Gaza. The Turkish authorities have repeatedly said that the ships were cleared and there were no weapons on the ships. And you can see in the footage the only weapons, so-called, those people had was just a few sticks. And they saw Israeli commandos attacking their ship with guns, and they used the sticks to fight the Israeli commandos for a few moments, and then they were shot and they were killed and massacred. And from a Turkish perspective, this is totally unacceptable. This is a barbaric act. And Turks will never forget this. There was already a strong condemnation of Israel for that. It has been committing crimes against the Palestinian people, war crimes according to UN reports. And now Israel has committed another act, a similar act, against peaceful activists from Turkey and from other nations all across the world.
Let me pick up on one thing there and go to Yaakov Amidror in Jerusalem. Israel is insistent that there were weapons aboard the ship, that there was premeditated actions by those aboard the ships. This completely denied by the Turkish authorities, who say they themselves carried out searches of those vessels and in fact screened each and every individual aboard. How do you explain this discrepancy between positions of Israel and Turkey?
With all due respect to the Turks, you can see from the pictures that they use knives, iron big sticks, and try to put the life of the soldier in danger. And again, ask yourself why it didn't happen in the other 5 ships, and the answer is very clear. No violation in the other 5 ships, only in this 6th one. So this is the only place in which the soldiers had to use their capabilities to defend themselves. And ask yourself why it happened only in this one and not in the others, and you have the answer. In this ship, they prepared the violation against the soldiers, and the soldiers were in a situation in which they have to defend their life. And everyone in Israel regret about the results, but we know for sure that the soldiers on the board didn't have any other choice. About the remark of my English colleague, with all due respect, he is lack the knowledge about the international law. The international law allow a state to declare naval blockade, and when a civilian ship is entering to the area of the naval blockade, it should be got orders from the Navy forces who are responsible for this area. They have to allow soldiers to go for a research on the ship. There are procedures in the international law. In this case, Israel went through all the procedures, and with all due respect, he has to go back to understand what was the situation in the Mediterranean according to the international law, and to understand that he misunderstood the situation, with all due respect.
Yaakov Amidror, you mentioned the phrase international law, but this attack took place in international waters, which would be an abrogation of that international law.
No, you are not right. In international waters, a state can declare what's called in the legal system a naval blockade, and during a naval blockade, which was pre-announced, it's not a surprise to the ship. If a ship decide to go through the blockade, it's to get permission, and should give the military forces to make research on the board. And with all due respect, it happened all around the world. It happened in Cuba in '62, and you know what was the results? The Russians knew unlike these people, they obeyed the international law, and they went away, because there is a way that military naval forces can research ships on the international water by giving pre-announcement that there is a situation of naval blockade, going gradually pre-announce to the ships that if you will not be stopped, they will be violated, and so on and so forth. And the Navy, the Israeli Navy, with all our regret to the results, went through the regulations.
Well, Mike, could I just
and
step in there,
from
though?
the international point of view,
Yes, come in, Thoris.
To be lectured by an Israeli about international law. I mean, why not look at the occupation if you believe in international law, sir?
Be please a little bit British. Try to be polite. According to international law, there is a right to the Israeli Navy to make the research.
Well, you're saying you legally killed 16 people, and you're very happy with that. It's obeying international law in your terms.
You are happy with that. We are not happy with that. We regret about it. No one in Israel say that he is happy. Don't put words in our mouths, and please be polite, and don't use this opportunity to put in the Israeli mouths things that they didn't say. We really regret about the results.
Well, leaving aside the arguments about international law, the incident has sparked intense international reaction. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said he was shocked. The European Union has demanded a full inquiry. The Arab League strongly condemned what it called a terrorist act. And France said nothing can justify such violence. Spain, Sweden, Denmark and Greece have formally called in Israeli ambassadors to say the raid was unacceptable. And Russia has called it a crude violation of international law. As we mentioned before, Turkey has long been an ally of Israel, but relations between the two turned sour after the Israeli offensive on Gaza in December 2008. Turkey immediately stopped moderating indirect peace talks between Israel and Syria. Then at the 2009 World Economic Forum in Davos, Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan walked out of a discussion concerning Israel's conduct in Gaza. Turkey also excluded Israel at the last minute from a joint military exercise in October last year. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denounced the move and said it called into question whether Turkey could be an honest broker in any peace talks. Earlier this year, Israel publicly humiliated Ankara's ambassador over a Turkish television drama that it claimed portrayed Israelis in a bad light. Israel then formally apologized after Turkey threatened to recall its ambassador from Tel Aviv. Let's go to Mustafa Akyol in Istanbul. This a massive dent in Israeli-Turkish relations. How great is it?
It is huge. First of all, I would like to say a few things. The people on the ship, they had no weapons, as you can see on the footage. They had no firearms. They had just a few sticks to probably protect them. And yes, they were probably expecting an attack from the Israeli army, and that attack came. And when you see commandos landing on your ship with rifles, you perceive it as an attack. And they, as civilians who just had sticks in their arms, in their hands, tried to protect themselves, but they were in return massacred by Israeli commandos. So that's what happened, and I condemn this, and I think my nation condemns this. You can see this right now outside of the streets. Turkey is infuriated, and first of all, the people on the ship did not recognize the legitimacy of Israeli blockade on Gaza. Israel says it is allowing enough food and humanitarian stuff into Gaza, but the UN denies that, and the people on the ship did not trust Israel. They did not trust that if they gave the humanitarian material, they did not trust that it would go in there. So they wanted to bring it themselves. They did not accept Israeli claims to have a right to put blockade on Gaza. They were idealists. They tried to break this. They paid this with their lives. The Turkish nation will always remember them as honorable people who believed in justice. And right now, Turkey is really infuriated, and we are not really buying into this Israeli line that Israel did all its best. It was not just a search, it was a clear attack. Commandos landing down from a helicopter on a ship. And the people on the ship considered it as an attack. They tried to defend themselves, and they died. And Turkey will never forget this, and the dent in Turkish-Israeli relationship will unfortunately get deeper and deeper. I believe that Turkish and Israeli relations is important, that Turkey can be a mediator in the Middle East, but Israel is just not allowing Turkey to have that edge with all its defiant position, which doesn't recognize anything about international law, which never finds a fault in Israel. I mean, I have never seen any Israeli spokesman saying, oh yes, we made a mistake. In any of this, either in Gaza, the whole world is reacting, but Israel always thinks it is doing all the right things. Children are dying in Gaza. Hundreds of children died with Israeli bombs. They burned to death with Israeli bombs. And Israel thinks everything it did was perfectly wonderful. And we Turks, at least, are not buying that propaganda.
Well, let's go to Phil Rees and pick up a point here. Phil Rees, we've got, for example, a UN Security Council meeting being called on an emergency basis. There has been an international reaction that has been seldom seen with regard to actions by Israel. Do you think that this mass international reaction and the intensity of it signals that on this occasion the world generally considers Israel to have overstepped the mark?
Well, the world has considered that before on many occasions, but nothing tangible has happened. It's been mere rhetoric. I think what Turkey does will be very important now. Turkey, led by an Islamist party, the AKP, is actually slowly inching itself into a position of influence and power in the Middle East, and possibly becoming the leading player, and it could do this, in the whole Israeli-Palestinian dispute. Now, remember too that Turkey is a very close ally of the United States. So I suspect that, Obama woke up this morning on Memorial Day in the United States, saw this news and thought, what am I to do about this? Because, which side is he going to be on? So I think that, clearly there will be a lot of noise. But look, 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon, 2006 attack on Lebanon. Throughout this time, there's been a crescendo of condemnation, but it's in a way that doesn't actually harm Israel's interests. And of course, the one country that could harm those interests are the United States. But in the end, despite words, it does nothing to do so.
Yaakov Amidror in Jerusalem. Is there concern about Israel-Turkey relations? Turkey has long been a valued ally of Israel. Is there concern that this may change?
Yes, but we understood it some years ago when Prime Minister Erdogan began to play the leading force in Turkey, and we understood that politically and ideologically Turkey is going far from the liberal democracy that we knew into the hands of radical Islam with many names. And we understood that it will take time, slowly but surely. Turkey and Israel cannot be allies because of the ideology that Erdogan symbolized. And so we don't like the situation, but we understood that this is the decision of the Turkish people to have a Muslim party which is far away from what we knew about Turkey in the past. And as much as Turkey is going away from Ataturk history into the kind of Hamas kind of a party, the chance that Israel and Turkey will have good relations is decreasing. And yes, it will be used by Mr. Erdogan and his people to put the Israeli-Turkish relations in the lowest point in the last 2 decades. But we understood a few years ago that this is the path that Turkey decided to take, and we cannot change it from here. It's the decision of the Turkish people. If they want someone like Hamas party as their rulers, it's something that in a democracy we cannot change. But yes, we are very sorry about the decreasing of these relations, but we understood this is history, we can't change it.
Mustafa Akyol, the implication there that anger at Israel is part of an ongoing political process. How much of it is that, and how much of it is the resistance to Israel, growing resistance because of Israel's actions themselves?
Well, first of all, I strongly disagree with what the Israeli speaker just, dear guest from Israel just said. Turkey was not a liberal democracy when Israel and Turkey had the highest rapprochement. Turkey was a country run by a bunch of generals. It was not a real democracy before. Turkey has become a liberal, something closer to a liberal democracy in the past decade, thanks to EU reforms. And Erdogan's government is in power and it's controlling Turkey because Turkey has become more democratic. And Turkey is today reacting more strongly against some of Israeli actions which hurt the Palestinian people, precisely because it is more democratic, because it's not run by a few generals anymore. And I think Israelis should get that right. And one more thing, the Turkish reaction, the reaction to Israel in Turkish society is not only coming from the Islamic camp in society. I was walking in Istanbul today, there were all sorts of groups, leftist groups and even secular people, nationalists, and of course people with a strong Islamic sentiment, but it's overall, it's the Turkish society in general who feels strongly for the Palestinian people. We Turks accept Israel's right to exist. There is no doubt about that. There are some fringe anti-Semitic elements in society, and we are not supporting that. We are critical of that. But we also defend Palestine's right to exist. We believe in Palestine's right to defend itself. And we believe that there should be a just peace in the Middle East, and that depends mostly on Israel's action. Israel should go back from its illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. It should accept Palestinian Authority in occupied Jerusalem. And Turkey will continue to support those policies no matter what government comes to power in Turkey. And that old Turkey that our Israeli speaker is longing for, that was not a democratic Turkey, and that's indeed the biggest difference.
Phil Rees in London, let me put to you, the critical issue remains. You mentioned that the most important player in this is the United States. What are you expecting to hear from them following this tragedy?
Well, I'm expecting them to veto any measures that the UN Security Council passes. To actually put any serious pressure on Israel to change its policies about anything. So I certainly believe people should have very low expectations. There might be rhetoric, there might be, a regret. Naturally, I think, nobody actually wished the events today to happen. I'm sure no Israeli did. But there will be nothing practically done to make Israel believe that it actually has to change its policies and behave in a manner that the rest of the world respects.
Well, thank you very much to our guests, Yaakov Amidror in Jerusalem, Phil Rees in London, and Mustafa Akyol in Istanbul. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. I'm Mike Hanna. Goodbye for now.